Welcome to our discussion on ethical foreign relationships and how morality shapes modern diplomacy, where we explore the guiding principles for responsible engagement in a connected world. In this presentation, we'll look at why values matter in international affairs and how moral choices influence cooperation, conflict, and global stability. Let's begin by setting out the central questions and purpose behind ethical foreign policy. Ethics in international relations means more than following laws. It's about making choices that reflect our deepest values while navigating power and complexity. This slide highlights how ethical frameworks help balance national interests with collective responsibility, forming the basis for sustainable cooperation and long-term stability across borders. When we ask what ethics in foreign policy really is, we mean decisions guided by values, a careful balance between ends and means, and going beyond mere legal compliance. Think of it as choosing methods that uphold dignity and justice while pursuing legitimate goals, and recognizing that legality alone doesn't guarantee moral responsibility. Successful ethical diplomacy rests on 5 core qualities that shape decisions over time: a clear purpose that drives consistent action, the pride to uphold principles under pressure, patience for gradual progress, persistence despite setbacks, and perspective to weigh long-term consequences and diverse impacts. Together, these form a moral engine for sustained, principled influence. In a complex and uncertain world, ethics serves as a compass that helps leaders act with integrity and purpose. This slide reminds us that ethical frameworks offer guidance when choices are difficult, ensuring decisions remain aligned with human dignity and shared values even amid competing pressures. Modern diplomacy is full of moral dilemmas where competing values and interests collide, testing our commitments to ethical principles. From humanitarian crises to economic inequality, the choices nations make ripple across borders and shape cooperation. So understanding these ethical challenges is crucial for responsible policymaking. Nations constantly face tension between protecting their citizens and addressing global justice, and that tension shows up in areas like aid, trade, military action, and environmental policy. The slide's example of vaccine nationalism during COVID-19 captures how self-interest can clash with global equity, prompting hard questions about responsibility and solidarity. Decisions about war and intervention require strict moral scrutiny, guided by just war principles like right intention and last resort, and by the responsibility to protect when populations face mass atrocities. These doctrines raise difficult ethical concerns about civilian harm, sovereignty, and long-term stability that policymakers must weigh carefully. Global poverty and inequality pose pressing ethical dilemmas about how much wealthy nations owe the poor, with cosmopolitan arguments urging global obligations and national priority views emphasizing domestic duties. The reality of billions lacking basic needs forces a moral debate about aid, complicity, and how assistance interacts with political regimes and human rights. Effective ethical foreign policy depends on clear diplomatic goals backed by instruments that turn principles into action. This slide emphasizes that tools of diplomacy must serve both national interests and universal values, creating accountability and practical frameworks for cooperation and moral engagement. Examining U.S. foreign policy goals offers a useful case study in how a nation articulates priorities like security, human rights, climate action, cultural diplomacy, and support for diplomatic personnel. These objectives show how ethical commitments can be integrated into concrete strategies that balance domestic concerns with global responsibilities. There are concrete tools that help enforce ethical foreign policy, from binding international treaties to the work of NGOs, the International Criminal Court, and public transparency. Each mechanism plays a role in promoting standards, holding actors accountable, and bringing citizen voices into processes that shape global justice and human rights. Global cooperation is an ethical imperative because many problems no country can solve alone, and multilateral institutions provide forums to negotiate shared solutions and uphold international law. This slide underscores the importance of collective action and the moral duty to participate in global problem-solving for the common good. Abstract principles become tangible through real-world dilemmas and case studies, which reveal how moral choices produce lasting consequences. Studying concrete examples helps us see the complexity of prioritizing values, the trade-offs involved, and the human impact behind policy decisions. The 2008 financial crisis shows how legal compliance can still fall short ethically when institutions pursue short-term profit at the expense of global stability. This case highlights the gap between legality and moral accountability and illustrates why interconnected economies require ethical commitment beyond regulatory boxes. Refugee protection presents stark human realities and ethical questions about who bears responsibility, how burdens should be shared, and what duties nations owe to people fleeing danger. Policy tensions arise when sovereignty and humanitarian obligations conflict, forcing difficult choices that affect millions of lives. Climate change is arguably the ultimate test of international ethics, with vulnerable nations facing disproportionate harm and future generations depending on choices made today. This slide frames the challenge in terms of unequal responsibility, intergenerational justice, duties of wealthy states, and the need for meaningful global agreements. Building a more ethical international order requires commitment at every level, from individuals to institutions, combining idealism with pragmatic strategies. The path forward calls for moral clarity and practical steps that preserve values while engaging with the realities of global politics. Ethical global citizenship rests on principles like human dignity, global solidarity, intercultural understanding, social justice, peaceful coexistence, and environmental stewardship. Embracing these values means recognizing our shared stake in confronting transnational challenges and treating others with fairness and respect. In conclusion, ethical foreign relationships demand courage, humility, and long-term vision, and they require diplomats and citizens to champion values that transcend borders. If we exercise power with justice, compassion, and respect, we can create the conditions for lasting peace and shared prosperity, choosing wisely for the sake of future generations.